What we do here is go back.
Hey guys, it's David Hume here. I just wanted to talk about a couple of responses that you typically hear to the kind of moral skepticism that I brought up in the last video. So the first is the kind you'll hear from Sam Harris. Sam Harris will say, look, anyone who says they're a moral skeptic is really not honest with themselves, because if you had the possibility of the worst imaginable life ever, just full of suffering end to end, no one in their right mind would wish that kind of life on someone else. And anyone who wanted to bring about more lives like that and increase the ratio of lives like that in existence is clearly someone who cannot be a part of the moral discussion, someone who we should call evil, and we shouldn't hesitate to call evil. In one way, that's true. It's obviously true that these kinds of people can't be kept around. And yet, if you really think about it, you can justify the kind of response anyone would give to such an idea via selfishness alone, right? So, if you're talking about the worst possible suffering for everyone for eternity, then you're one of those people. So, right there, straightforwardly, at least one person, you have one reason not to want that. But then, what about the rest of humanity? Well, you could say that, yeah, sure, there's these altruistic reasons that we all tacitly ascribe to that say, hey, we don't want that for society. We don't want everyone else around us, suffering as much as they can for all of eternity. You can get there that way. But there's also an idea that you could get there completely with the same selfish instinct that made you want to exempt yourself from such a way of living. So all you have to do is kind of accept these libertarian principles that the non-initiation of force and respect for property rights produces a kind of well-oiled economy, high-functioning, very highly segmented and specialized economy, and that the fruits of such an economy provide the kinds of enrichments that you yourself enjoy. Now, if that's true, you can use basically the principle of selfishness to get you all the way there, all the way away from the worst possible suffering for anyone, or any non-voluntary suffering. And you've not really had to talk about morality once, right? You've only had to talk about what you want for yourself. And the other kind of response you'll hear to this is, well, hey, you're making an argument to me, and argument contains an ought, right? It contains the oughts that you ought to be correct with your arguments. You ought to have good arguments that are sound and valid and true, right? We ought to prefer truth. You are hypocritically using oughts while saying I have to justify my oughts, that all oughts must be justified. And that's it's interesting because those oughts are still contingent oughts, right? Those oughts are contingent on the fact that we are biological organisms that want to survive in the world. We want true and accurate understandings of the exterior world and how to navigate it, because it helps us survive, right? Our higher thinking has put us at the top of the food chain, and if anything will continue the survival of the species, it won't be sexual reproduction. It will be our capacity for intelligence, our capacity to understand the world around us. Now, this isn't a moral good, let's say. This isn't the kind of morality that people are talking about when Socrates is talking to Euthyphro about morality. That's not what we're talking about. This is essentially changing the subject. This is talking about survival of the species. This is talking about self-interest again. We're back to talking about why I want for me should dictate what other people do. And that's fine. That's great. I'm all for selfishness. But here's the thing. I don't think that's what other people mean when they talk about morality. I don't think this whole time we've been talking about morality and where it comes from and contemplating, the dialogues of Plato and Socrates, and the answer turns out to be selfishness all along. I think we had a good understanding of what selfishness was from the get-go. And when we conceptualized morality, we were talking about something that was law-like and not contingent on our desires to survive. We could look at animals and see their desires to survive. We didn't look to them for morality. No, we had these, omnipotent and all-knowing, all-wise, all-powerful beings who handed us our morality, right? The gods. Now, Euthyphro gets into the problem of, well, what happens when these gods disagree with each other, right? That doesn't make any sense. If it's the will of the gods and the gods will against each other, then, you have relativism. It can't be what the gods are talking about. Now, of course, they're not talking about morality, they're talking about piety. But the same argument can be made for morality on the exact same lines. Now, you kind of avoid that problem when you talk about a monotheistic God. And the problem there is, if you have an all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving God, then why does evil exist? And could God contradict himself? If God can't contradict himself, it's interesting because then his power is limited, so he's not all-powerful. If he's all-loving, then why is there evil? If there's evil, then it doesn't seem like he's all-powerful because he could just make a better universe that has less evil, so on and so forth, and you get the classic problem of evil. So, all right, that's my battery, so I'm going to... All right, now I got my computer plugged in. Okay, so here's the thing. Both of these approaches kind of just change the subject. Both of them are really talking about, premises of self-interest we already accept, and they're calling, look, we found morality. Well, that's not really profound, and I don't think it gets you to any really profound places. So that's my take on morality, and honestly, if you want to say that selfishness is this ethic, then you can use the same kind of argument that I talked about in the last video, right? You can say, well, just because we are selfish doesn't mean we ought to be selfish. And it's absolutely true. It's a completely fair point. And that's probably where I'll end this video. All right, thanks for listening, guys. Oh, and tell me if you like the fact that there was music behind this one. Leave a comment below, like the video, or, don't. Tell me if you hate it. Tell me why you didn't like it. Love to see a comment. Thanks a lot, guys.